it's Nancy from Nancy Chu Homes at Keller Williams NJ Metro Group. Q3 and Q4 of 2022, the buyers just tapped out because of the interest rate. It was very slow. And I think there was an expectation that in that back half of last year, we were going to see a slow uptick in inventory. And yes, in some places, absolutely. But in parts like the Northeast or maybe on the coast, we're not really seeing an inventory increase. And even, it's mid-March. Like we thought we would see an increase in inventory between, starting January 15th and ticking up into a spring market. We're not. We're actually seeing less and less homes coming on every week. It's feeling as though the entire market is a bit delayed. I would tell you that the last 2 quarters, the sellers are a little bit nervous. They're waiting to see what happens. And so they may have decided to wait and see what the houses were doing that came on January, February, March. And if they see that, hey, people are buying, then maybe they're likely to list their home. But what that does is that will delay our market, which usually follows a pretty specific pattern. Like it usually follows a pattern, right? Like it's quiet between, around the holidays, and then it goes up. The inventory tends to sort of grow and peak around June, July. 4th of July, everyone takes a break, and then you sort of see slower inventory decline through the end of the year. And then, you go back to the holidays and then it starts over again, right? So that's sort of what we're accustomed to. That is a seasonality cycle, okay? But it's interesting because it feels like we're 2 months delayed. Like you literally just take that seasonality cycle and bump it back 2 months. I'm just putting that out there. So we're waiting to see whether the sellers really decide to step up towards the back half of this spring season, okay? But so far, no real surge of inventory. And we'll get back to that conversation of inventory. So Altos Research, which is a really fabulous resource, this is what they published, that by the second week of March, we had in the country about 412 single-family homes for sale, okay? So just so you know, last year at this time, which was 2022, second week of March, we actually only had about 258,000 single-family homes for sale. So that's 66% more inventory now than compared to last year at this time. But that was because last year demand was extremely high and everything was just coming and going, flying off the market. So in 2019, which in my head, and I think for a lot of folks, 2019 kind of, pre-pandemic, everyone sort of thinks of 2019 as normal. Because pandemic, anything over pandemic was not normal. So I think people think, if we could just get back to 2019, then it's normal. In 2019, around this time of year, we had about over 800,000 single family homes for sale. So, we are at about 50% of inventory than we would be compared to what was normal in 2019. And honestly, there were previous years where we had like over 1 million homes for sale, okay, during this time. So, I think we can all see that there is a pattern, and right now we're kind of not really necessarily following that pattern. So we'll see. Now, there's a couple of things that could happen. The first thing could be that the back half of the year, the inventory rises and people lose their jobs, and we get closer and closer to a recession, and those will force sales, and then that will bring inventory to market, okay? That's if the market sort of starts to weaken, as we kind of hope that it does, so that, the Fed can stop raising interest rates. But if the economy comes in hot and remains hot, then we're going to start to see mortgage rates potentially push into 8 and go over 8%. And then we're just going to have a repeat, I think, of Q3 and Q4 of last year, which is things just go clunk, the hammer drops and dead stop, and we're going to end up repeating whatever this cycle is that we have this year and going into next year. I'm not that worried about seasonality. I think the pandemic kind of proved to us that seasonality wasn't necessarily really a thing, right? People, during the pandemic, people were buying, they didn't care. They were buying in November, they were buying in December, they were buying over 4th of July weekend. that whole concept of seasonality kind of went out the window. So let's see how this whole thing shakes out, right? You guys, listen, we have been on a 10-year run starting from like 2010. We have been on a 10-year run of slowly declining inventory, okay? And that has been coupled with low mortgage rates the whole time. So this market has essentially taken out its own legs, right? We have kind of removed the framework of the equity buyer seller on our own. Inadvertently, I would tell you it sort of happened without us noticing. We didn't really think about the repercussions of extremely affordable homes along with low interest rates for a prolonged period of time. We didn't think about the fact that it was going to sort of remove that equity buyer seller out of the market, possibly for upwards of another 5 to 10 years, even from now. And we can talk about that at a later date, but oh goodness me. Okay. Or the fact that we've created a situation where people were able to carry multiple mortgages, so they didn't need to sell their properties in order to buy the next property. If you have a 2.75 mortgage, who's to say you couldn't carry two 2.75, 3% mortgages? So does it take 10 years of a 7 or 8% interest rate to bring our inventory back? I don't know. We're going to have to see about that. But I did think about this, which is if you purchased your home in 2009, and let's pretend that you were pregnant then, right? So how many years would you potentially stay in your 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, which you don't need to move up from because it's big enough to fit your family? So 18 years of school, and then maybe 4 years of college, and then maybe you're staying because you're not ready to retire yet, and you want an opportunity for your kid to graduate from grad school and come home and maybe even live with you for a couple of years while while they're saving money, you're helping them out. So at this point, I'm thinking you're staying in your home 25 years potentially before you would think to sell. That would put 10 years on what our expected, anticipated, current 15-year homeownership tenure is. That really causes an inventory challenge for still potentially 10 more years to go. Just think about that. Okay, guys, I did want to say a couple of quick things, which is, you're hearing all over the news that inventory is going to flood our market. You hear, oh, inventory is coming back. It's going to come. And the prices are going to fall. Okay, let's talk about the 5 places in which inventory is going to come. Number 1, is it foreclosures? That wave of foreclosures that we're going to see? Is it investors are panicking? They're going to sell off their property, right? They're going to sell it off. Cash flow is not good. Number 3, older folks are aging out. They're going to sell their homes and move to Florida. Look at all this new construction. That's number 4. All this new construction is being built. They're going to flood the market with homes. Okay. Last but not least, seasonality, right? So these are our 5 things. Seasonality, we've already talked about. I think we're pretty certain that seasonality is off the table. At this point, we're in the spring market and I don't see any houses in our market area. This is of course specific to, the places where you're not seeing as much compared. There are definitely places where inventory is up. Okay. New construction. I don't know. I don't see any new construction starts. I don't see any new construction housing permits being filed. You do see a lot of the builders trying to finish off, the ones that they have, the ones that have been delayed because of money or because of supply chain issues. They're definitely going to finish those off, but you're not seeing a lot of new construction other than what they call large scale multifamily, which are, large apartment buildings. You're definitely seeing that. But I have a funny feeling that those are not for condo. Those are more for the rental market. Aging out. Well, that's very interesting. The idea that boomers are aging out and they're going to sell their homes. Absolutely. There are some of those. But I seem to be encountering a lot of folks who have decided that they're going to either age in place because their house is paid for and their kids and their grandkids live nearby, and maybe they're not ready to go to Florida because they want to hang out with their grandkids. That's number 1. The other thing that I'm also seeing is A lot of people are saying, you know what? I don't have to sell my house. I own my house outright because I've owned it for such a long time. Or how about my interest rate's only 2.75 and I'm just going to rent out this house and it's going to help me pay for the next property that I purchase if I go to Florida. So I'm not seeing aging out producing a ton of inventory either. Let's go back to investors panicking and selling off. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out how that plays out. Unless they simply want to take their cash out and do something else with it, the vast majority of them have very inexpensive loans on investment properties. Don't forget, if they got their investment property during, the last few years, the last decade, they have very low interest rates on it. It was probably refied at some point, number one. And number two, let me think. Rent is at its all-time highest. Rent is at its all-time highest. I'm trying to figure out how the all-time highest in rent, if the cash flow is good, why are they selling it? I'm still trying to figure out where this investor panic is coming from. Where's the origination of this? Okay, last but not least, foreclosures. I know we always come back to foreclosures. Well, guess what? We've said this over and over again. The vast majority of people who own homes in this country have 30% equity in their homes. That is the average. I think we have about 30+% equity in our homes. If I lose my job and I'm on the verge of losing my home, why would I let the bank take it from me? Why wouldn't I just sell it and take my equity out of it so that I can at least still have that money? I'm trying to figure out what wave of foreclosures they're talking about. Okay, guys. Yeah. So basically, this was a long post for me to tell you that I think we've got an inventory problem, and I think we may have an inventory problem for the next 10 years. Ooh. All right, guys. I will talk to you next week. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to give me a call, 917-992-3098. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and comment. It is super important to us. You guys are the lifeblood of what keeps us going. All right. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you guys next week.